Hey YouTube. Tonight we're going to have a very serious discussion. It's about the personal defense handgun, the self-defense handgun, about the purchase of a handgun, the ammunition choices, the carry choices, the ramifications of using it in self-defense. So let's just get right into it. I want to preface this by saying I was a U.S. Marine. I have been in situations where I've been forced into using a firearm, and it's a very heavy thing to do. Very, very heavy. Even if you're completely right, you are justified, and it is absolutely necessary. It will be on your mind until you die. That being said, there is no sort of levity in any way when you're forced into that kind of role. And the way that I look at it, I'm not even going to put my hand on my gun until I am certain that I have to use it. I'm not going to draw and hide behind it. In most states, it's actually illegal if you're not on your own property to hide behind a gun. Okay? So that being said, we'll get right down to the more lighthearted aspect of it, where I can ease up a little bit and smile again. So the first thing you got to do is choose a firearm. There are a lot of things that go into choosing a firearm. Not only, a lot of people go into a gun store and they go, oh, well, that one's a good deal and it looks all right, so I guess I'll take it. They don't ever train with it, and they don't really even know what it is. They just load it and leave it on their bedside table. Not going to help you if it's at home. It's even further away than a police officer. And we all know that they don't fit in your pockets. Okay? Guns, usually, most of the time, you can fit them in your pocket when we're talking about a self-defense handgun. Okay? So here are some of the choices you got to make when you buy your first or your next or whatever self-defense handgun. You got to think, do I want something bigger or smaller? Am I going to carry open and not care because the gun is of good size, of good heft, and it feels good in my hand? Or are you somebody who's going to go with a pocket pistol, for lack of a better term, because it's easily concealable and unobtrusive to daily life? Those are things you got to consider. And when you consider those things, you also have to consider, am I going with a revolver or am I going with a semi-automatic? And a lot of that's personal preference and skill level. Also, the usage of the firearm. If you're somebody who really is going to leave it on your bedside table and is really not all that familiar with a firearm and doesn't want any thrills and frills and whatever, maybe a 5-shot Smith & Wesson Air Weight is okay for you. There's nothing wrong with that. You just got to be honest with yourself and be honest with the guy in the gun store or wherever you're getting your firearm from. And you got to think to yourself, is this really what's most effective for me? And then beyond that, you got to think about your caliber choice. If you're going to use it for self-defense, let's face it, a .22, although it's better than a sharp stick, and I sure as hell don't want to be shot by one, isn't the best choice. Because, if you look at the .22 caliber firearms on the market right now in terms of handguns, many of them have a magazine less than 15 rounds. And, if I was to engage somebody with a .22, I'd have to give them the whole magazine to feel secure that they are down. Okay? And when it comes to being judged by 12, when it comes to that, it's a lot harder to justify yourself if you pull the trigger 15 times. It just is, okay? So when I look at a self-defense handgun, I look at what I call the family of combat calibers, okay? And that to me is the .38 Special, .357 Magnum, 9mm, .357 SIG, 10mm, .40 caliber, .45 caliber, .44 special, .44 mag. Those are the 9 calibers that I would consider to be combat calibers and be downright acceptable. Now there are variants of these calibers, the 9x18 Mac, things like that. But I wouldn't look, or the what was it, the 732x25 Tokarev. I'm not sure if that's the exact designation. Correct me if I'm wrong. But those are things that I would look at as acceptable calibers. Now this is just my personal opinion, and so take it for what it is. Okay. Not only do you want to look at what I consider to be combat calibers, you also want to look at ammunition availability in a shit hit the fan situation. That 357 SIG may not be that available, when the world goes to shit and nobody's working in the factories manufacturing the ammunition anymore. That round may not be as readily available as, say, 9mm or .40 caliber here in the United States. Now, I understand that if you live in a place like Mexico or other parts of the world where you're not allowed to own military caliber ammunition or handguns or any sort of guns that shoot that ammunition, that's not a choice you can make. You're probably stuck with something like .38 Super. I'm sorry. Maybe you should move. If you can't move, well, go get a .38 Super. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. So you also want to look at availability and cost to operate. And when I say cost to operate, I mean how much money does it cost for you to load your magazine. I know for me, with the gun that's right here on my hip, it's, about $20 for a box of 50 cartridges. And we're looking at just under 40 cents for every time I pull the trigger. So, there you go. I think actually I worked out the ammunition expense the other day to like 32.3 cents every time I pull the trigger on my .40 caliber, which is not bad at all. 3 shots to the dollar. Put down $30 and you're going to put out 100 rounds that day, which is cool. That's just fine. And then you got to go to how are you going to use the gun? What environment are you in? Are you in an office building where there are very thin walls and people packed in tightly into cubicles? Are you afraid of somebody coming to work and going postal because they got fired? If that is a legitimate fear for you, you might want to look at something like a Glazer safety slug or something like that just stops when it hits something. But then again, if you're somebody like me who's a lot more often finding himself in rural areas where the population density is low, and if I were to be engaged with gunfire, it'd probably be somebody behind something with substantial cover, and I'd probably be shooting at some decent distance. I'm probably also going to have to cover myself with something that we all call jackhammer fire, where I put a fresh magazine in and fire repeatedly in that direction to put myself at a new spot of cover, to try to gain the upper hand and force him into a reload where he doesn't know where I'm firing from. So for me, that safety slug won't help. It doesn't have that reach out and hit you power. So maybe I want something like a light for caliber, heavy powder load, full metal jacket. Maybe instead of 180 grains, I want to go down to 163 grains, and I want to go from, a load with a plus P plus. Okay? So I really have that wallop to reach out there if I need to. And then the other thing is that there are exotic rounds out there. Maybe you want the one that sits in the pipe, the first round that's in the chamber of the gun, to be something like a less than lethal round, maybe a rubber slug or a wooden slug, something like that. so that you at least give your attacker the option of living. I mean, if that's who you are, then that's who you are, and that's the kind of person you are. But those rounds, many, many times, have failures to feed, failure to fire, hang fire, failure to extract, and they're not very accurate, is the general review on them that's out there. You know? So some of the more exotic rounds, yes, they are out there. Yes, sometimes they are affordable, but I don't think they're the best thing to put in your gun, especially if your life depends on it. You shouldn't be trying to save their life if they're trying to take yours. Okay? And beyond that, you need to find and load what your gun likes and what you're comfortable with. If you're in an urban area like the situation I described earlier, where you're in an office building, maybe your gun doesn't like some of the more acceptable loads. So you've got to find a happy medium, something that you think is safe to use in that environment that won't overpenetrate, but your gun will also feed, fire, and extract reliably. Okay? And the final thing while I'm talking about ammo is you need to practice with what you carry. I understand that target loads are cheap and plentiful, but they're not going to fire like your self-defense loads. They won't. The recoil will be different. The point of impact versus point of aim is going to be different. Everything's going to be different every time you change ammunition. So what I do and what I suggest for others is that you expend your self-defense ammunition. My schedule is once a month. Once a month, I'll go out and I'll buy 30 or 40 rounds of self-defense ammunition, and I will expend the 30 or 40 rounds from the month prior. I shoot every week, sometimes once or twice a week. But once a month, I cycle out the majority of my self-defense ammunition to make sure that I'm ready to use it, to make sure that I am effective with it, and to make sure that I keep newer ammunition in my gun. Okay? To make sure that that ammunition's in good, working, functioning order. Okay? Now, the final thing that I really want to talk about today, you've got your gun now, you figured out what ammunition your gun likes, you practice with it. Do you carry it? You should. That's the whole point of having it. Stand up. This is my handgun. The one that I carry on a daily basis. No, it's not a Glock. This is a Smith & Wesson semi-automatic SD 40 VE. It's got a brushed stainless slide, loaded chamber indicator right here. You can see that there is a round in the chamber if you see that little notch in there. And I'm about to clear the weapon and safety check it, so I don't want to hear it. I'm carrying this gun on me loaded because I intend for it to be loaded when I need it. Okay? There's the magazine. And there's the round out of the chamber. Now we all know that this gun is safe. You can look right through it, where my thumb is, and you can see my shirt. There's no magazine in there. No round in the chamber. Sit that down. We're here to talk about holster choices right now. Do you want to carry inside the waistband concealed? Do you want to carry outside the waistband for easy access, open carry? Are you somebody that's going to wear a shoulder rig? Or are you somebody that dresses like me and thinks that an ankle piece would be the best? I don't know. I'll tell you my preference, though. This is a Phobos Kydex paddle holster. For those of you who don't know how it secures and works, you can wear it with any set of pants that fits tightly enough and well enough to support the weight of your gun. It's got a very nice back side on it, and it's sweat resistant. It's a nice sweat guard that goes up a little bit further than the edge of the holster itself. It's a medium length sweat guard. And anytime you wear any sort of pants, you just take it, it's contoured for your body, and slip it right in there inside the waistband. And that's how you wear the Kydex outside of the waistband concealment holster. It's got a slight cant to it, which is nice. And the thing is, it's also cant adjustable. So I can do a direct vertical cant, or if I wear it a little bit further back, I can cant to the front. Or if I'm wearing it up front, I can cant a little bit further to the back. And one thing that you need to do, now you remember, we safety check this firearm. Okay? One thing you need to do is make sure that you get very comfortable using whatever holster you use. Okay? Now I know that when it's in my preferred position, I can go from having a conversation, gesturing, whatever, and all of a sudden it's right there. Okay? Another thing you need to work on also is your draw. Okay? You shouldn't be drawing the gun like this. You shouldn't. Because look at all that area that my muzzle traveled through. People that I could have potentially shot, things that I could have potentially shot on accident. Okay? You want to work on a proper draw technique. And like I said, practice, 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 and do not carry without training. A draw should look more like this. Okay, I'm going to keep it slow so you can watch. In fact, I'll reholster and do it even slower. Get real close up to the camera. This is what a good solid draw should look like. You come from your side, you're having a conversation, you tell them, hey, stop, and you go for your weapon. You want to keep your index finger straight. You slide up your index finger here, just below the slide. You get your thumb low. You turn the gun right here. You bring your hand down and push the gun forward. Okay, I'm keeping it much lower than I would if I was to actually fire, just so I can keep it within camera range. And do not put your finger inside that trigger guard. If you look at my gun, it actually has this nice little spot right here that's all stippled and roughed up. That is exactly where my finger rests on it. So when I come out, I'm going to come forward like this and into a good shooter's position. Okay? And if you don't have a holster that you can deploy your firearm from rapidly and gain good target acquisition off of, it's not going to help you. So I'm going to tilt the camera up so that we can see what it looks like from the top side of the draw. There you go. You see? That's the top side of the draw. Now if you look, I'm going to turn this way. You can see that both of my elbows are bent. Okay? And then I've got proper sight alignment. And I've also got very good positive purchase on the handgun with two hands. None of this one-handed nonsense, no gangster shooting like in the movies, none of that. No. You need to do it the proper way if you expect to maintain a certain level of safety. I understand that you intend to shoot and kill somebody when you draw your gun. So do I. But there should always be safety because there are always going to be people and objects around that you do not intend to harm. Okay? So the safest way to draw your gun, I'm going to tell you one more time. You draw it straight up, you keep your muzzle down, you push it up directly at your target. That's a very, very slow draw. And when you reholster your firearm, you want to go back the same way you came out. Okay? Now understand my house is empty right now. There's one dog in this house, he's back there in the crate, and I put him in the crate because I knew for this video I was going to draw my firearm and illustrate the correct way to draw, the correct way to draw a firearm and how I prefer to wear my holster. Okay, and I'm going to tilt the camera back down again, and I'm going to show you how easily this holster conceals. When it's not concealed, I like to wear it up here towards the front. I'd say, between 2:30 and 3 o'clock. But when I conceal it, I push it back to around 3:30. And it rides up high enough, if you can see, it rides up just high enough on me that when I'm going to put a jacket on here real quick. When I add a jacket, all of a sudden it's invisible. There's no printing there. There's no difference between this side and this side. Put my hands in the pockets, walk down the street, whatever, yada, yada, yada. I can even open my coat up to a certain extent, say the wind's blowing, you still don't notice it. So that's another thing you got to think of. Because some states, concealed means concealed, and if you were to do something like this and break concealment, it's against the law. Or say the wind blows and it blows your jacket behind your gun like that and you accidentally lose concealment or negligently lose your concealment, you can end up going to the pen for a while. And when you get out, you certainly are not carrying a handgun again. They won't let you. I live in an area where it's legal to open carry and you don't need a permit to do it. I also have a conceal it permit. So if I decide to carry concealed with my coat when I go outside, and it's cold in the morning when I leave, but it's 80 degrees by noon and I take it off, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay? Another thing is, the very last thing I want to discuss is the legality of using your firearm. You want to avoid it at all costs, obviously. It's very obvious that you want to avoid it at all costs. It's not advantageous to your freedom or your health. Okay? It's just not. And as I said in the beginning of the video, it's a very, very serious matter when you actually have to draw your firearm and use it. You're going to fuck somebody's shit up, to put it plainly. FTSU, fuck that shit up. And that's what happens when you draw a firearm and you're properly trained. That's what's going to happen. Don't mistake it. I was in the military, like I said, for years. And I was going to be a law enforcement officer until I realized that I would much rather be part of the family business. Okay? And the one thing that I know from experience is that if I'm ever put in a situation where I have to draw this firearm and pull the trigger, I'm going to fuck somebody's world up. And then I'm going to have to call the police. I'm going to have to disarm myself. And I'm going to go down to the station, more than likely in handcuffs. And until it gets sorted out, and if there isn't some sort of video evidence or a witness, I may end up going to prison for the rest of my life. This isn't war. This is everyday life. This isn't the video games. This isn't the movies. Don't get it confused. This is your life that you are protecting, your family's lives that you are protecting, and the general public, if you are ever in a situation where your life and other lives are in danger. So you have to know your local laws. Okay? And with that doesn't only come when you have to use it. It comes every day when you leave the house. In your house, you can do what you like with a firearm, besides shooting it, of course. There are so many laws against just blowing a gun off in your house. There's all sorts of illegal discharge, possession, and usage laws that are just going to rape you out to shit. Okay? But in your house, you can carry it however you like. There are safe ways and unsafe ways, of course, but we don't need to get into that. You know better. Or at least you should. If you've got a firearm, you should know better. But what I'm talking about is more something like this. In your state, it's legal to conceal. You've got the conceal it permit. Maybe it's also legal to open carry. Most of the time, you don't need a permit for that. Okay, I know at least in my state I don't. But if I'm open carrying and I do not have my permit with me, see, I went out for a jog, and I don't always bring my wallet with me when I go jogging, but I do bring a gun. And when you're in jogging apparel, many times there's nowhere for you to conceal the gun. Okay. Say I'm jogging and all of a sudden I get back and I get a call from my wife and my daughter's at school or whatever, and she's got a cold or a fever and I've got to go pick her up. I run inside and I, just grab my car keys and jump in the car. I've just committed a felony. Unless I take my gun out of the holster and sit it on the car seat next to me. That's what I have to do to maintain legality in a car when I'm carrying open. If I put it in the glove box, it's considered a concealed weapon in a vehicle, and without my permit on me, I'm breaking the law. So you need to know your laws, every last little one of them, because it matters. I gotta tell you, if I, pull up at the gas station and I'll jump out of my car and I'm running inside to go get a package of cigarettes and the gun's still on my hip, they know I didn't take it out of my fucking holster when I was in my car. And I get Johnny Law waiting for me in the parking lot telling me, hey buddy, we gotta have a discussion. Please put your hands over your head. And at that point, I'm going to go to jail for breaking a firearms law. Something stupid and simple. All I had to do was go like this and set the gun on the seat next to me, and I would have been fine. Or I could have concealed it and I wouldn't have had to take it off. It's one of the two. That's just my state. But you need to pay attention to tiny little things like that. Now, I'd be willing to bet that 4 out of 5 law enforcement officers where I live, if I was carrying open and had my permit with me, wouldn't give me 2 looks about it. You know what I mean? But you really gotta be careful and make sure you follow the law. You don't want to look ignorant. You don't want to give the gun community a bad name. And you don't want the general public getting all upset about it, because right now with the election that's coming up and everything, I shouldn't have to tell you, but our rights hang in the balance. So with all that being said, I hope I've given you at least one new aspect to think about, or maybe helped you out in your decision, your journey to decide to finally take matters seriously and protect your own family. So in closing, I'd like to say thank you for everybody, every last person who's ever watched one of my videos. I understand there are not many out there, and I'm just getting started with this. I have very few subscribers. But, if you watch this video and you enjoy it, awesome. Like it. Share it. Subscribe. Why not? You can always unsubscribe later if I'm an asshole. No, I'm just kidding. Please just stay safe when you're out there. Stay armed. And look sharp. Okay? This is Jay Dopel on September the 12th, 2012. Telling you all to have a great day.